Getting our video started. And we're recording.
All right.
There's
I'm going to call this meeting to order. And first order of business is introductions. So, William, you want to start us off this morning?
William Kleinsaucer, Swine Representative, Augusta, Montana. Well, things are pretty dry on the home front. There's not going to be a lot of hay this year unless you purchase it. Same with barley and winter wheat. It could use rain, but there's a good chance at the end of the week maybe it'll dump a few inches. As far as the hog prices are good for time being and future, they're looking pretty good towards September, October. So it's looking up, and I guess we'll take it one day at a time and keep going.
Okay.
Jake Fettis, beef representative from Manhattan. We got 2 tents last night, but it came with 50-mile-an-hour winds sideways, but it was moisture, so we're happy for that. Been selling up until the last week, been selling quite a few calves, getting stuff traded. Last week, the boards have been kind of in a negative fashion here, so nobody really wants to buy anything right now, but market's still better than we've ever seen it in the history of the industry, so that's a good thing. But we'll see what it does here moving forward and see if we can get some cattle traded. Irrigation water is going like crazy, trying to get things wet and keep it wet because it doesn't look like it's going to last long. So we're trying to get everything wet that we can. Done breeding, hauling half of the cows out tomorrow. So trying to get stuff out to summer grass. It's just always a busy time of year.
Okay. All right. Greg, are you?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I've been out making a loop, so I'm kind of bedazzled here now. I'm messed. So you won't see a video of me. Been working on water projects. When you go to turn out to summer grass, and sheep representative, Hilger, Montana. When you go to turn out to summer grass and turn your water on, and system that's designed to give you 10 gallons a minute goes barely a half a gallon, and you start having to dig holes and figure out problems. So we're doing all right here. We've got enough grass to turn out on. Hopefully Mother Nature will help us keep it growing. If not, going to be pretty tough year. The hay is holding on for about another week, and then it's going to start backing up. But sheep market's looking good. Other than that, yeah, finish up Brandon and hopefully get the rest of the cows out. We're a month out from turnout yet, so hopefully everybody's fat and happy before the bulls go out and we get a good breed. So that's me.
Okay. Alan?
Alan Redfield, beef rep south of Livingston. It's been kind of interesting in the last month or so. We've had snow, we've had 80 degrees. The grass and hay was coming pretty good, and then it went down to about 20 degrees and burnt off the top 6 inches of that. My water's really slow coming. I've still got one wheel line left to get turned on. One neighbor he hasn't got turned on yet because I won't let him have enough water to run his pivot because I can barely run mine. So it's a little interesting on some of it. The mountain grass, I was working on fence. It's coming pretty good up high. But I think the water will be the big issue. We put cedars in a bunch of the cows yesterday, so we're starting our AI project. So that's about where we're at here.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah, Eric Moore, beef rep from Miles City. Kind of the same as everybody. We're kind of right in the middle of the drought. There's places worse than us. There's places better. I'd say about half the yearlings that were in the background in yards in the Yellowstone Valley were turned out and half were not. Kind of like Greg was saying, we've got enough to start a grass crop. Probably most people can keep their cows out till early wean. But probably no dryland hay. It's probably too late for that. Irrigating water on the tongue and the powder is going to be very tight, if at all. Might not be any on the powder. The run really hasn't come yet, but the stuff that's in the powder right now is too salty. Tongue River, they're trying to buy as much stored water as I can out of the reservoir from the Native Americans. And Yellowstone isn't going to go dry, but a lot of people, it might get low enough to where you can't get your pumps into the mainstream from your intake point. So kind of like Jake said, we're pumping water just 24/7 to get as much on as we can while we have it. So that's what's going on here.
Hey, Lily?
Lily Anderson, dairy representative from south of Livingston. Sorry, I just pulled over here. I just got the kids dropped off. Yeah, same here, just chasing water and chasing grass. I feel lucky it's still pretty green here, but it's going to be scary. I'm already getting a ton of calls about protein, which is wild. A little early for that. The other thing that was exciting was the USDA AMP grant opens June 3rd, I think. And rumor has it DFA got like 5.8 million just for Montana. So any dairy people out there listening to this meeting, that's pretty exciting. So the grant opens June 3rd, and it should be cool to see what people come up with.
Okay, well, Gene Curry, Beef Rep, Lear, Northern Montana, and William thinks it's dry in his country, but he's green, and we never turn green up in our country at all. Up along the mountains, there's going to be some grass. Other than that, it's just pretty much old grass if there's any left, and water going to be tight, just like everywhere. Irrigation water, the project got 3.5 inches. The Bynum project got 1 inch. So there's guys that have hay are putting their inch on part of their hay, and that's going to be it. And we don't know. Jeremy's trying to decide how he's going to grow enough silage for the feedlot because lack of water. Our private water is running, and we don't know how long that'll last. I guess, but yes, we do have water there, so that's a good thing. The winter wheat looks like it's hurting already, and the spring grain looks good. It's up, but boy, if we don't get something here in the next few days, it's going to be a sad looking country, because if you look at the drought map, that we're part of us in D3 and part D4, and already, so it's looking spooky. But my theory is that so far humans haven't been able to control the weather. That's a good thing, because we'd screw that up. We could.
They're trying.
Yeah, they're trying. Maybe someday, so. All right. Well, with that, we're going to move on.
Do this real quick.
Oh, yes. Mike.
Yeah, real quick. You'll remember halfway through our last meeting, we received a memo from the governor's office about the use of AI note-taking transcription devices by board members, staff members, members of the public, and the uncertainty that might create some confusion about the official record of state meetings. This recording that we're making through Zoom is the official record of the meeting, the one and only official record of the meeting. So I'm obliged to read a disclaimer like we do at the end of Major League Baseball games. That just to remind everybody that AI note-taking, transcription, or summarization bots may not be used until the state adopts a formal policy on their use during public board meetings. So there you go. So please, if you've got an AI summarization bot tool turned on right now, turn it off.
All right.
Poor Elon Musk. Huh?
That was specifically for you, Alan.
Yes, Gene, I was gonna say, Gene, you don't even know what we're talking about. We're talking about AI and bots.
He thought it was an artificial insemination bot.
Exactly. That's what in all state government, this is probably the board at the lowest risk of too much.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that disclaimer would probably fit better in an ITSD meeting.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. There's fish and wildlife where there's somebody wanting to figure out some way to manipulate whatever they do. So, all right. With that, I'd entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
All right.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there a discussion? Discussion, hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. All right, Mike.
Yes. Yeah, I'll get us kicked off here this morning. Good news for everybody is that, as you probably noticed, we have sort of a light agenda today. So I'm assuming we'll make quick work of what we have in front of us that has to be done today, which is probably good based on what all of you said in your opening, that you're probably going to be ready to move on to other things by midday today, if not before. So I'll start real quick. Only one update for me this week, and it's about Yellowstone National Park bison. One, we had the IBMP meeting in West Yellowstone several weeks ago, largely a non-event, other than talking about, and Dr. Shemansky's in the room in case she wants to add something when I get done, but they talked about population. One of the things that came up was that Yellowstone does believe they experienced a higher level of winter kill of bison this year than they had in previous years, maybe. So they're pegging their population down around 4,900, they think, before calving. Of course, they'll do a post-calving count later this year for the number, but they do believe that while we didn't get a lot out of the population through hunting and trapping for quarantine and the food transfer program, that they did experience some other issues inside the park during the winter season this year that'll have impacts on the population. Largely, there wasn't a whole lot of other major things that were talked about. One of the things they talked about that I'll weave into this is that you may have seen that Yellowstone has put out a supplemental EIS notification and asked for comments on that. We will be commenting on it, as well as the governor's office and FWP. For any of you who want to comment on it, or any of the other organizations that you are a part of, if they're wanting to make comments, those are due on Friday, May 29th, just 2 days from now. But we'll have all of ours in along with the governor's office and FWP. The purpose for that is, yes, they just did do a record of decision on their latest EIS just 2 years ago. But as they stated during the IBMP meeting, that there were lots of triggers in there that a reevaluation would need to be done if they saw some significant changes. Chris Jeremiah, who's a biologist with the park that works with the bison, talked extensively about the fact that we are not seeing hard winters as often as we used to. And with the population pushing, 5,500 to 6,000 last year, and the limited out migrations that we see based on what's happening weather-wise, necessitated them to go take another look. So that'll be like the previous EIS. That'll probably be at least 2-year-long process. They're just now putting out the initial and taking comments on that, but then they'll go through working with cooperators from state government, federal government, just like they did before. Eventually we'll come out with alternatives and then eventually choose an alternative. So we're back into that environmental impact survey planning process with bison that we just finished in 2024. We're going to be starting another process, and the park initiated that just because they felt there's a need for some reanalysis based on what we're seeing on the landscape and what's happening with weather, bison behavior, all kinds of things. So that's kind of good news. We like to see them reevaluate. As you know, we were have challenged their previous EIS. So the fact that they're going to take another look is something that we're supportive of, and certainly have comments about the things we want them to take a look at. But just to know, those comments are due on May 29th. I'll stop there. Dr. Szymanski, is there anything you want to add from the IBMP or anything? I mean, it was, as IBMP meetings go, it was pretty low key. I'm trying to remember if we even had any presentations of note, really, that I think the board would care about.
There's a social scientist, I guess I would call.
Oh yes, that's good.
I forget her last name, Madison, from Montana State University, that presented about just like bison tolerance, perceptions of bison, management of bison as wildlife, which was a fairly interesting topic. It was a fairly interesting presentation. I thought it was fair. But no, it was a pretty subdued meeting.
Yeah, that was Dr. Madison Stevens from MSU. It was one of the first times at IBMP meeting that I saw someone with research that recognized our side of the issue. I think one of the things that was really great to hear her say as a researcher, and she had talked to ranchers, she had talked to people in our industry, and she said, the threat of brucellosis is real. It's not made up. It's a real concern. It creates real harm in the cattle industry in Montana. So having that put on the table of this is a real thing. It's not something people are making up just to get their way in terms of managing bison, that there is a real concern for the livestock industry. And that's good for some of the folks in that room to hear. So
plus it's probably on record too.
Yes. So that's everything that we would want to share on bison. I guess I'll see if anybody has any questions about
So you're
Yellowstone
thinking,
bison.
you get the feeling that maybe they're thinking that we don't get the out migration, the population, are they going to have to look at some other means, or they don't?
I don't know. They're just
changing their numbers. You think?
They're doing a whole new analysis. So I think all that's on the table, and folks need to make sure they put that into their comments if that's what they feel they need to be looking at.
I had a question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So you feel like that's a public stunt, or?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's coming across the pub. So I do think that, we all see what we see. We see what the bison population numbers are. We saw what happened a couple of years ago when we did get out migration. I think they put some thought into it. Those numbers are real. I mean, we've had 2 what we would call hard winters in the last 10 years. And he pointed out, I think, that we had like 4 in the 10 years before that, and 5 in the 10 years before that. So the patterns of migration, the patterns of how bison move have changed. And I think that's what all the cooperators, all the people who make comments, any of the things that you think they should be evaluating, whether it's population numbers, methods and tactics for managing population, that's everything that needs to be put in. So it's just the beginning of another probably 2-year process before they would, get to the point of being able to, choose another alternative and put another EIS in place. It's possible that it could be the same. We don't know. That's the thing. It's a process. They're going to go through it, and we will. All I can promise all of you is that we will participate everywhere we're allowed and engaged to participate. We will be participating.
That's as much as we can ask for. So, any questions from you guys? Okay, Alan didn't go sit in on this last one.
No, I have plenty to do. My main help got a hip replacement, so I've been kind of on one person around here lately, but she's back on the payroll now.
All right.
He's been Nurse Allen for a while.
Yeah.
I still have to put her sock on though.
All right.
Yeah, and then the Lindsay doesn't have anything for us this month for a legal update, so that's the other thing that's making the agenda a little bit less than maybe it has been at other times. Next is human resources. I see from my chair that Mike's door is open, and I see him walking in. So here he comes.
Good morning.
Good morning. Morning.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mike Spatz, I'm the Human Resource Officer for Hardwood Livestock.
Okay. Can everybody hear that are out there online? Okay.
Yes, sounds
All right.
good.
Good. Very good.
We're good.
Because we're a short one owl here, but I just want to make sure the other one's picking up. So go ahead.
Perfect. Well, we got a brief report for you today, some staff openings, recruitment, and some general updates there. Looking at since our last board meeting from April 22nd to May 27th, we've had 3 new hires since the last board meeting. Those are in CSD. We hired an admin purchasing technician position that opened up, an accounting tech, and in Brands, we hired a market inspector in Ramsey.
Were those internal movement on the CSD?
Nope, those are all outside external
Okay.
hires. Yep.
Oh, so we don't have the hole that we have to fill there then.
There's still some holes in it.
Oh.
But we'll get them filled though. We had 3 vacated positions. Animal health, we had a compliance technician. Brands, we had 2 market inspectors in Billings opened up since the last board meeting. And then we have a future resignation in CSD and the IT world coming up here in July 3rd. That position will be vacated.
So what's the story in Billings with all of a sudden the Browns just happens just the luck of the draw?
Yeah. There's no people are just moving on to different career opportunities. Maybe not go back to the ranch. I think instead of staying on at the market. So we're hearing a lot. But with that, we're currently recruiting for 8 positions total. We're gonna have a couple more up there. So we're recruiting for 3 market inspector positions in Billings currently. So we do have where am I at? Lost my spot there. We did get some offers out for the half-time K grader position in Great Falls. That's out there. We have a accepted offer for the veterinarian microbiologist section head job. That offer has been accepted, and we have an accepted offer for the public relations officer position here in CSD, which is good news. So a couple high-profile positions being filled. The offer was made to a pathologist position in the lab. That was turned down, so the lab's going to look at other options that might help with some succession planning, something moving some stuff around there, but some other stuff to come up.
So was it money or are there other issues on that Bozeman?
I don't know. I think it's a combo, but money's part of it. Yeah. I mean, that's probably
Well,
the biggest
the
thing.
reason I asked, we interviewed some candidates last week on the position having, and one of the candidates, the questions after the interview, do you have questions for us? And that question was, is this job, where is this job? Is it in Bozeman? Because if it's in Bozeman, I may have second thoughts about my application. Because that person was not sure they could afford to live in Bozeman. And so, and we talked about that before when we were trying to decide where to put the lab, that market is definitely a different market, but
Yeah, and the people that, if they really want to move there, they're going to make it. But sometimes they don't do their research, it gets a little shocking.
yeah.
And I'll say we ended up having to go to get an accepted offer for the vet microbiologist position. We certainly are paying more than we paid the previous person who left us about a year ago, or maybe more than a year ago now. And I would say that when it comes to the lab for those positions, for the vet micro positions and the vet pathologist positions, Bozeman is a factor, and the cost of living in Bozeman is a factor. But probably the biggest factor with those jobs is the fact of what is the true market? What are other labs paying? I did some of my own independent research, and it's pretty clear that if you want to fill those positions, you've got to be able to at least be equal to the other labs in the region, other places we're comparing to. There are certainly labs that we are not going to be able to compete with just because they have so much more resources than we do. But when you're comparing yourself to Pullman or Laramie, places like that, the market has changed. So it's not just Bozeman, but just even getting someone interested, you've got to be able to offer what some of the other labs in the region are offering at a minimum, and that's how we got it filled. We finally got the salary to a position, or the position to a salary that was equitable enough to make the person take a look at it. But then that's when the cost of living comes into factor, like whether, how do you compare Bozeman to a Laramie or a Fort Collins or Pullman, the other places where these people are typically going to end up getting a job. So Bozeman's a factor, but there's also, I think, uniqueness of the skill set we're looking for, and the market for that talent is also a major driving factor that we've had to wake up to a little bit.
So is Bozeman higher, like the cost of living there, than like Laramie or Pullman? Or?
Yes, it is. It is. It probably would not be if you were trying to compare yourself to a Fort Collins or somewhere. It wouldn't. It would probably be a little bit equal. But I would even say that one of the things that we figured out is that even here in Helena, I mean, there's a lot of pressure here in Helena. I mean, and the cost of living here in Helena is not is above the national average. So,
and I think something to keep in mind too is that Bozeman is a factor of cost of living, but it also factors into it's a place people want to live.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a double-edged sword there, because most of these people would rather live in Bozeman than Laramie.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest.
Yes.
Right.
Not that I don't like Laramie, but it's weather's a little better in Bozeman. It's a little more scenic. There's more to do. So I think it drives both ways, but that's why the cost of living is higher, because it is a great place to live. But it does draw a certain crowd that wants to be there. So but again, it boils down to salary. So if you make it competitive, you're probably going to pull some people from some other offers that are similar, because they want to be there. But yeah, your salary's got to be enough to make it work.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Chairman Mike, how much did we go up from the last person on this salary? What percentage or that did it take to finally get somebody to accept the position?
Yeah, you're going to ask me to do math in my head.
Ballpark.
It's at least 15%. It's at least 15%.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still within the market range. But
yeah, we're still, the market
Okay.
range on it goes higher. We didn't go above the band, but
Okay.
but we're probably 15% higher at least than the previous offers. I'll say we're probably more than 20% above what we were paying the person that was in the position the last time it was filled, but we're at least 15% above where we failed to get candidates to take it at the last offer level. And so that's where we're at, but there's still, it's like I said, we try to not go all the way to the top of the band, but there was more room to go there, but you have to figure how that affects every other position in the department, because you also need to have equity as much as you can.
Well, that's what
between
I was getting to my question. So the people that are there, and you see a new hire come in that is equal to or above what you've been there a while, that's always an issue. I don't think it would be, I guess.
if we have recruiting issues or that's an issue, we'll see that pop up. The department can do what it can with money at that point.
The thing we're lucky with is these are very, very, so whether it's the vet micro positions or the vet pathologist positions, they are pretty unique. It's not like we're hiring a whole bunch of those. It's, that's more of a factor when you're hiring the positions where we have 20 of those same types of people across the department that are in the same classification. But it really only affects a few people, but it's still what you got to do to keep things going. But the good news is we found someone, and we'll do our best to keep them and for as long as we can. But we also know there are labs out there, and I think we just have to be honest about that. You know, if somebody wants to go work at NVSL in Ames, Iowa, or go to one of the real large, you know, university labs like Texas A&M, which is where we lost our previous person to, you know, it's going to be very difficult to compete with entities that have the type of resources that they have. But we've got to try to be as competitive as we possibly can be, and certainly competitive within our little circular region here of the Mountain West and Northwest.
There other
So,
questions?
yeah, Mr. Chairman, do you
Yes.
think that's what it's going to take to fill that pathologist position, is just keep bumping salary till we get somebody, or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's where we're going to be. That's going to be the challenge. Is we're going to have to. I imagine we'll end up hiring them at a similar salary level to what we hired, which is one of the reasons why we're looking at maybe giving that position a little bit more responsibility. So the vet micro position is a supervisory position, and we, as Mike mentioned, is probably good for succession planning. That if we have a third individual there with some supervisory experience working under Greg. So that's our intent, is to sort of equalize that position, and so that we can justify putting a little higher salary on it. But what we'll get for it, again, good negotiation, you should always get something in return, is that we'll try to get somebody who can come in and be an additional supervisor within the lab, which will break the workload for those folks, how we divide the lab sections out. And it gives you another person that hopefully is training up and ready to maybe move up whenever we need a new lab director at some point in the future. So those are some things we're looking at to build a little more resilience in the lab. So it's more salary, but we're going to try to get more out of the position to justify why we are paying it more.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions out online there? Okay, Mike, go ahead and move
All
on.
right. Just some shout outs introducing the new staff. Brands, we've got Kyler Smith joined the Brands team in the Ramsey market, started on May 4th. We have Ann Burns here in Helena, and CSD joined the Helena team as the administrative purchasing tech. And then we have Gani Kuka joined the team as the accounting technician on May 11th. So welcome them to the department there. And then lastly, just overall general updates. We have the Governor's Awards coming up, and then we're calling this the next 2 months for staff, just a bunch of engagement surveys and feedback surveys and different types of stuff coming. Mid-year check-in processes are information's going to go out this week, starting June 1. So we'll be hitting that process here pretty quick.
So the Governor's Awards, we could submit how many?
It's it's 3 or.
Yeah, I think they might choose up to 3 for our agency.
Yeah, they can have a team nomination or single individual nominations with that too. So.
Okay. Any other questions? All right.
All right. Thank you, board. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spatz.
Got it.
All right.
You're all setting a very good pace.
Yeah, well, that might come to a screeching halt now. The numbers guys here. Intimidate that.
General updates, I guess that's it. All right.
And Mr. Chair, before Brian starts, I'm not sharing screen out there since we have so many that are online, so we can see if somebody's trying to raise their hand or get in to ask a question. So I'm trusting that everybody has their documents in front of them out there and aren't relying on me to put them up on your screen. But if you need me to be putting them up on the screen, please let me know. But I'm just trusting that our online folks are following along in their books at home or on their electronic documents, ever how they got everything for the meeting. So
All right, very good. Thank you. All right.
Mr. Chair. Grizzly Adams, no, Brian. You're,
I
Yeah.
like it. It's looking good.
The wife says I can keep growing it,
Is that right? Oh, man, mine won't.
and then I can't cut it, is the other part of that. Sorry, I digress. Mr. Chair, Brian Simonson, I'm your Chief Financial Officer, your Deputy Executive Officer, here to present the financial health of the institution. The department is doing fantastic. We're gonna start on tab 2, page 1. We're gonna look at the state special revenue report. My reports today are gonna go pretty fast just because there's mostly all good news that we're gonna see in here. So our state special revenue report, we have 9 to 10 months of revenue collected for this fiscal year, which is about somewhat like 80% of the fiscal year is complete. That's what you should be seeing here in these dollar figures. Going down column D, looking at the brands revenue, just a couple notes. Field inspections, row 6, is positive. That's a positive number for the fiscal year for the first time so far. So we finally made it over the hump and have collected, like you can see there, $957 more than we did this time last year.
But last year we were down considerably from the year before, if I recall correctly.
I think it was down, yes, but I don't think it was too far down. I'd have to go back and
Yeah,
look at that.
that's right.
Market inspection fees, obviously, doing well there, almost 76,000 more than this time last year. We gained about 5 additional thousand. So it has slowed down quite a bit for the month of April, but that is still a good news story. The investment earnings were somewhere, between 15 and 20% down over this time last year. A little bit less revenue, and certainly the interest rates are suffering there. So you can, in those investment earnings, you'll see negative numbers, which is to be expected. Per capita fee, you're going to spend just a little bit more time on per capita fee.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I had a question on Mr.
Yes.
Chair. So on the investment earnings, are they part of the budget, or does that money get reinvested? How?
So we put it in the revenue stream as far as expected, to spend it in the budget. So, but everything that's put into short-term investment, which is what the investments are, that is funds that we have sitting in the bank that we've collected over a period of time. So it's brands fees, it's per capita fee, it's milk fees, right? So the money that's in there was budgeted at one time. Some of that, because it's state special revenue, it carries over from one fiscal year to the next. What's carrying over is just our cash reserves at that point. It's above and beyond the budget. Whatever interest, like this money that we're earning here on the investment, that goes back into that, it just keeps replenishing. It's growing it, but it's growing the reserve. It's not really growing the budget. Does that do it? Okay. So part of it's in the budget and part of it is cash reserves.
Yeah. But long story short, when we have cash, we like to invest it until we need it, so that it's hopefully doing something for us. And more often than not, that's going to be positive versus negative.
And that's pretty much dictated by the state financial administration.
So the State Board of Investments is who we go through for those short-term investment pools that we put funds in. And allows our money to be working when we're not using it. And then if we get some investment earnings, and like it says, it's negative, but it's still positive, right? What this negative number means is that our investment earnings are lower than they were last year, but we were still earning. We're still coming out ahead because the Board of Investments is going to invest those very, very conservatively. So the risk of loss is very, 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 very minimal. And so what it does is it allows us to capture some additional revenue to put into the budget and help pay for some other things. So it's a good thing. I mean, otherwise our money would just be sitting in the bank doing nothing when we're not using it.
One of the quirks about government financing or budgeting, especially as we go into session here, is that we're gonna build a budget, right, based on our expenses for the most part. And when it comes to state special revenue, then we have to then build in the revenue to match what our expenses are. We can't have less revenue in the budget system than we have expenses. Otherwise, it's just a big red flags. But, you know, if you're paying, so in the last few years, we've been spending more per capita fee than we've actually brought in revenue. So we're spending down a little bit of that cash reserve. Well, that spending down of the cash reserve, it isn't really a budgetary function in the budget process. So you'll see for per capita fee, the budget line there in the system, $5,680,000. That's a little probably overinflated to try and capture some of what we're actually getting in these Board of Investment, this investment dollars revenue, or just our cash reserves that we're spending, because you have to have revenue to match your expenses, but not all your revenue, you know, in this case right now with the Board of Livestock is coming in from just per capita fee revenue. It's also coming in from investment dollars. So it's a strange mix of, it plays a part, that's for sure. We track it to play a part. We expect it to play a part. Okay, per capita fee. I'm just gonna look at so you don't have a per capita fee or a progress report in front of you this month. The two explanations for that is in the month of March, we brought in $3.4 million of per capita fee, so it was significant events, and that whole per capita fee collection had pretty much ended at that point. To make my point, in the month of April, we only collected $629,000. That's still a chunk of money, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, all of the collection process has come through, and now we're going to be going into an offset program, or what we'll be seeing funds trickle in, but the revenue from the per capita fee cycle is pretty much complete.
Yeah, and well, before you leave that, I'll just say we got our last. Well, it won't be our last, but our most recent report on per capita fee collection, and I want to commend our producers, Department of Revenue. We billed a little over $5 million in per capita fee this year, which was kind of surprising to me. Because that's pretty consistent with what we've been doing, which would indicate a stable, basically cattle inventory, because that's the biggest driver of the number, right, is the cattle inventory. But which, well, again, I think we all mentally were prepared to see that billable number go down because people would report having less cattle than they did. But we had billings similar to last year. And at that last report, there was only 267,000 of what had been billed had not been paid. And for any tax or revenue, I'll give kudos to our industry to have 98% of what's been billed paid is actually a really, really good number. But there's, as Brian said, there's 267,000 out there that if those people who have been billed that don't pay it, it goes into the offset. And then if they get, a property tax rebate or anything later in the year, we possibly get our money before they get their money, because that'll be tracked by the Department of Revenue. So, but I think it's a really good news story that we had over 5 million of per capita billed this year. And the fact that at this point, as we're getting close to the end, that of what was billed, only, a small fraction of it is still outstanding and not paid, is kind of a good news story all the way around on revenue, and surprising, given what other things we know about the industry. So
is this an uptick from recent years, or
it's 120,000 more than last year?
I mean, the percent that hasn't paid yet, you said it's better this year than.
I think that's pretty typical.
This time, or in May, I saw the June report from last year, and we were still at 3%. This is about 5%. So, in the next 2 months, we'll probably bring in another percentage or something like that. So I'd say we're right in the range. I would say anything 95 to 98% is typical.
But how much of this 120,000 is the increase in per capita fees?
I would say, I would say
Or more,
that and more.
more,
Yeah, is the 3% increase in per capita fee, because we do have less actual cattle being reported and reporters from year to year. We're down 13,000 cattle from last year, just in raw numbers of being reported.
But to my point, I think we all were probably mentally prepared for that to be more than 13,000.
Oh, yeah.
That's almost a static number from a percentage standpoint.
Absolutely.
From one year to the next.
I told you it was all.
It's all good.
I'll tell you what, the other thing, if things don't change in the state of Montana here in the next 3 or 4 months, that number next year at this time might be quite a bit different, because there's already guys that I'm hauling cattle for that are saying, I gotta buy hay for all of these girls. What the value is, if there's still that kind of value for them, somebody else is gonna own them. I don't know where they're gonna go. You're gonna find lots of homes, Jake, but.
Now, the only thing I'll say to that is we've been saying that since 2020.
Yeah.
People are selling cows, numbers are going down, and yet our per capita numbers have stayed virtually the same every year through the last sell-off. You know, we kept thinking that the fees, you know, the numbers were going to go down, per capita fee is going down, but it hasn't.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not believing anything about what I think until I see actual numbers.
Yeah.
With the within record prices this year, I think that'll be a big influence on
The total estimated we're still over 1.8 million cattle being reported.
Yeah. And to Jake's point, prior to COVID, prior to 2020, 2021, we hit a year where we had just got over 2 million cattle billed on per capita that year, which was the highest year in a long time. And then we retracted back to this number we're at now. And then we've stayed pretty stable, and not just, and I would say if you look at things, I mean, you can go up into brands and you can see that the reason why we're positive on market inspection fees is because that means more animals have gone through the market in this period than went through in the previous year. And if you look at our field inspections, it's pretty much almost the same as it was. So, I mean, we're seeing the same number of inspections. We're seeing that, you know, so everything that we can look
all
at
correlates.
points to stable, right? And that may not be what you're hearing from people in the world, but all of our numbers point to actually things have stabilized a little bit. But yes, this upcoming season has the potential to make us take another dip. But to Jake's point, for the last 4 or 5 years, all numbers we can look at have pointed to everything is, classes of animals and what people are doing and what type of animals they have on their place, whether they've got yearlings or whatever they're doing. But the raw numbers have stayed stable. I mean, I'm sure what people have been doing on the ranch has changed, but the numbers of animals on the ranch have stayed fairly stable.
Mr. Chair, I'm gonna kind of skip over the purple, the milk and egg inspection. Those numbers are coming in as expected. Nothing really new to report there. The diagnostic lab, row 29, lab fees. Even though you can see there we're down $16,413 from this time last year, we had a really good month of April. We brought in $186,000 for the month and gained on that $16,000. I mean, we were $75,000 in the hole compared to last year on March 31st. So the lab has picked up some serious ground in the last month. And so we hope to see that continue. Looking pretty healthy there for the end of the year projections. Fishing season officially, I think must have got underway, even though I know it was not February, but we took in $35,000 in the month of March for wolf donations. So that's a big jump for 1 month. So I think everybody got their fishing license for Memorial Day. I know I did.
And you made your voluntary wolf donation.
I cannot. I can neither confirm or deny that.
You're in my mind. I want to
Mr. Chair, that's my state special revenue report.
All
we'll move on.
Any
to-
questions? Wait a minute.
Yes.
Is there any questions from anybody online there? All right.
Moving on to page 2, we'll do our 2 months worth of projections. We have the month of May and the month of June left in this fiscal year. I'm not going to talk a ton here. We'll be on the far right column F, just to jump up remind the public and the board, because this trend has been going on for at least 4 months. You can see there, total personnel services, we're at 751,000. That's actually, since the beginning of the year, calendar year, that number has gone down about 50,000. And most of that is because we've had new hires in that period of time. But that number is directly related to the amount of vacancies and kind of some higher profile veterinary, those kind of vacancies. So a lot of revenue in personnel services is tied to vacancy savings. So that's that number. The other 2 numbers in the operations, the contracts and the rent. Contracts is 181,000 projected excess, and rent is 170,000 projected excess. Both of those are pretty traditional. As far as rent being in CSD and contracts mostly in ag, there is some DSA testing that went on there that we've got some excess authority in also. The only real big negative number is that repair and maintenance of 144,000. The lab, for the most part, gets credit for that number. They do have a lot more this year on like preventative maintenance than they've had in the past. I think they got new equipment and they were maybe using a little bit more null money before, but no real worries there. That's the only big negative there. So total operations, we end up with an additional 339,000 of excess authority. Looking at the fund balances going down, not too much here, but most all of this is going to be just a direct result of that 751,000 of total personnel services. So the general fund, a lot of that is the fact that we got more money in the federal money from the meat and poultry inspection, and so we're spending less in the general fund, and then probably making some decisions in the lab and to not spend general fund as fast either. So that number looks good, and I don't see any reason why it should go down. So we're going to have some excess authority in general fund this year, that's for sure. Per capita fee, again, a lot of salaries tied up in per capita fee, so that explains that number there. So for our projections, 2 months to go, Evan is projecting we're going to have over $1 million, $1,065,982 of excess authority come June 30th.
So Brian, I point out though, that number is not inclusive of some end of year purchasing that because we have excess authority. I'll take you back to the last board meeting in April, just that we looked at some of the things. We approved them 2 ways. We approved them that if we have excess authority, we might take care of those needs now, and then we don't have to ask the legislature for them. And if we didn't have excess authority, they would become legislative requests for the next budget. So there'll be, I think we'll draw that number down of excess authority because we will be executing on some of those purchases, so we can take some air out of the balloon of what we're going to have to ask the legislature for the next biennium. Go ahead and take care of those needs now while we have excess authority. So
I see our milk deal is working so far too, huh? The having.
We certainly, that infusion of general fund buoyed up the milk inspections to the point that they're actually, putting a little money away in revenue. Their expenses are being shared with general fund in a real positive direction right now. Yes, it is working.
So we're still losing dairies.
yeah, that's why you see a negative on the milk inspection fees, but that additional general fund is what's keeping the program, funded the way it needs to be, and allows us to do more than we were doing before. So
yeah, and we're certainly making a concerted effort to kind of hold on to as much of that milk inspection revenue as possible, let it create a cushion again if we can. Mr. Chair, that's the projection report. I would flip over to page
Let's,
12.
wait a minute.
Yes, sir.
Any questions on, when you are now in, netherworld?
There's Greg.
Mr.
Oh.
Chairman, I don't have a question. I just got a phone call. I got some wayward heifers I gotta go straighten out, so. I gotta drop out of the meeting and go figure out where they broke a fence and put them away, so.
You know, Greg,
So-
if you had those GPS collars, you wouldn't have to do that.
Trust
Mr.
me,
Whitman, since you're leaving, just a note on the livestock loss board forms. We did add the detailed report that you were looking for last month, so that's in there now.
All right, thanks very much, and hopefully that's a quick fix and I can be back shortly, so.
All
Talk
right.
to you in a bit.
Okay.
Are you a vent
No.
rep now? What are you doing, Jake?
No.
We'll talk later. He called me about it the other day.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, our comparison report, there's not a lot left here to talk about. Major movement, even though you can't really see it in this month's report, but if you're looking at that top salaries line, you can see there we spent $677 more last year than we did this year. When I reported that number out in March, we were like 317,000 over what we had spent last year. And then
What page are you on now?
page 12.
Oh, okay. Wonder, I wasn't seeing.
Into the brown sheets.
So my only point here is that the payroll has caught up with the payroll cycle. So we're all on track now. Everything is happening at the same time. And so you can see that our numbers in the payroll services are not too far off. Obviously, we spent more in overtime. You can directly relate that to the brands. So they've done a $29,000 improvement in overtime. For the most part, it's them in that category. But otherwise, $1,000 compared to this time last year is pretty good.
Yeah, if we'd have had vacancies filled, it should be a lot more than that.
Yeah,
Because if you just take last year's spending and put the legislated raise on top of it, you would get more than that. So
yeah.
that's just a product of having, and not only, but also having vacancies that are more higher salary vacancies. So you make up ground faster.
The only two categories in operations would be, again, the contracts and, I guess other expenses. So under contracts, for the most part, that $124,000, a lot of that is more build testing in 2026. That if you looked at the column D, the 1.3 million there last year of testing, for the most part testing, you would have, that number has actually, we probably through additional federal grants, and that number has actually has gone down in the last month. So we've shifted some expenses. That's how we get to that 124,000. The other expenses, that 158,000, row 14, that over this time last year mostly relates to increased meat and poultry inspection, federal dollars total coming in, and then what we take as the indirects off of that. So that is what's accounting for that increase there for the most part. Other than that, I don't have much else to say on here. Things are looking normal, and if there's any pluses or minuses, a lot of it has to do with payroll. Evan's notes at the bottom, 74% personnel services expended with 80% of the payroll complete. So we're on the right side of that number. And operations were 74% expended with 75% of the budget year lapsed. So we're on the right side of that number also. Then, Mr. Chair, the next page, page 13, there were no additions. There was some spending, but there were no additions to our grants or budget amendments that have come in. So there was no net change to talk about there. Mr. Chair, that's my report.
Okay. Well, questions? Is Lily still on?
No.
Yeah, she is.
Oh, is she?
She's just not
Oh, yeah,
showing.
she's just not sure. Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
all
here.
right. All right, but no questions. Is that correct?
Yep. Looks good to me. Glad milk plan is working for the most part. So
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Simonson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I might be hanging out for the livestock passport.
We'll get it done.
Yeah, we're way ahead of schedule. We don't have, I don't think we have Dalen yet. But I don't know if you want to take a little break. I know so folks can make phone calls or whatever out there or check on something with Greg checking off. You could,
Yeah, maybe
you
we
could
should.
take a little break and come back and see if Dalen gets on. You're still going to be way ahead. You're operating about an hour ahead of schedule right now, so you're doing good.
Well,
Good news goes fast.
yeah.
Running a meeting like I do finally.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's the Department of Revenue.
We'll reconvene at 20 after and then we'll just, if Dan is not on, we'll move around a little bit on our agenda and till he can join us.
There you go.
I expect him to be watching an hour ahead.
Okay. Are you on break?
On break.
All right.
So we're gonna just jump forward to the livestock. I assume that's why you're here. And we're gonna jump over to the livestock loss board report. And what's that, tab 4 or something?
This chair, we're on tab 3.
Oh, tab 3.
Mine is 3.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, we're gonna go take just a walk down these 5 slides that Ms. Dolly has provided for status of the livestock loss board in tab 2. The first one is your first 2 are geographical representations of where losses are happening in the state. The first one is a total depredation, so all animal species together. You can see for the calendar year 2025, we've had 220 losses across the state. The next one just takes those numbers and breaks them out by species of predator. So 85 grizzly losses, 67 wolf losses, 10 black bear losses, and 58 mountain lion losses.
See where the grizzlies are, Jake?
I do. I also see that Stillwater County hasn't lost anything except mountain lions. It's interesting.
Yeah.
They get a high number of losses, but only one predator.
And a lot of losses in one claim.
Yeah, they're gonna say probably. Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the next slide is the graphical representation of claims across the years, starting with 2021. So 2025 is kind of not at the bottom. That would be 2023, but we're second to last in reported claims for the calendar year.
So I wonder how much, about in 2021 is when we started, the livestock loss board started doing some of those grants for prevention. You wonder if that has something to do with the numbers.
Well, they've been doing grants since the beginning of the program.
But I don't think there were very many that were active at the beginning of the program. There was a few like I think Blackwood Valley, they were quite active right from the get go. But up in our country, I know there's a range rider now on the mountain front there in Western, and we still have plenty of grizzly depredation. But
you would think that again, Leslie's doing a little bit of research on maybe a disparity between the number of losses that Wildlife Service is investigating and the number of claims being submitted. So we think there's a little bit of the numbers that might be, certainly the number of eligible claim or eligible losses is higher than 220 for 2025. So maybe there's less people reporting the claims, than there were before also.
Yeah.
That's speculation. The next page is when the claims came in or when they were paid. Isn't really tied to what month the livestock was lost. So in this sheet for 2025 and 2026, there is actually 2 claims in here that have come in since January 1st, 4 losses in 2026. 2 claims so far, 1 calf by a grizzly and 4 goats by a mountain lion. But otherwise, if you look over in the bottom right corner, you can kind of see that February, March, and April, we're not averaging very many claims coming in so far. So still pretty quiet, which if you look up in 2025, those things are even worse, quite frankly, in 2025 this time of year. So maybe all is normal for the calendar. The last report just brings us full circle around to the first report. This is all of the total claims just in a table form broken out by county and species. So again, back bottom right corner, the 220, the same number. They've spent 294,000 in calendar year on claims for losses, which quickly says, well, that's close to 300,000. So what's our balance? Our balance currently for the next 2 months is $288,928 left for claims. So nearly, approaching $300,000 of unspent claims money for fiscal year 2026.
And is livestock loss, are they able to carry over that?
They do. Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, Livestock Loss Board can carry over all of that they want into the prevention funds, or they can, the statute says they can give up to 50% to wildlife services, which that's been their tradition to do. So half of 288 is 144,000. That's what would be eligible to go there. They could also divert 10% of it to administration costs, which they have no need to do that. So, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it last year, but I don't think they've done it for a couple years. Anything as far as 10% goes, and then the whole thing could go towards prevention. So, but at least at a minimum, half of it is going to go towards prevention. So, I was going to the next point on Leslie's report here that she gave you was talking about the May 12th Livestock Loss Board meeting, and they awarded 8 grants for $58,000. And then she says, that the next deadline is November 4th, and the board will meet December 9th to go over the next grant cycle. And I would just say that with the money that we're going to carry forward, the amount that there's about 168,000 in reserve right now for Livestock Loss Board, and then the additional 100,000 they'll get via statute authority July 1st. That December grant cycle, there'll be almost $350,000 available for grants.
So how much did they give out the last grant cycle?
58,000.
No, but I mean the one prior to that. That was
I think it was like 120-some thousand.
I was thinking it was more than.
Yeah. I don't have the exact. Oh, did she say? No, she didn't say.
The thing we need to really promote is that, as you were talking about, the opportunity on preventive grants. So if someone, if you know somebody who needs a range rider, if you know somebody who's been having trouble with grizzly bears during calving and is worried that they can't afford exclusion fencing or electric fencing, that we need to be encouraging people to apply for that so that money doesn't pile up. I would say the Livestock Loss Board and those of us on the financial side of the department, the administrative side of the department, we want that money out there in people's hands doing stuff. We don't want it sitting in the bank. It's not doing anybody any good sitting there. So we do need to really get more people to take a look at that grant program and get some more grants in. I mean, it's very typical. We get a lot of the same people apply for the grants, a lot of the same grazing associations, year after year, and that's fine. But I think it'd be good to get some new blood in there as well, looking at, whatever it is they can, carcass composting programs, whatever they're thinking about, there's money there to help with those things. So we need more uptake, especially if we're going to go into next year with over 300,000 to give out. We didn't give out 300,000 this year.
We tried.
And so, and that's with 144,000 potentially, because that's been their typical mode of operations, going to Wildlife Services to support the work that Wildlife Services does on the investigation. So, they've got money. We need to be getting it moving. One of the questions I've already gotten that I'll say here is not for this board to consider, but it's just to have in the back of your mind if you get asked, is as we head towards legislature, Livestock Loss Board did decide they wanted to pursue some additions to the program. So the additions of eagles, as a predatory species that they would pay for, opening up the ability for vet bills, not just kills, but vet bills for injuries to guard dogs. And so
Up to $500.
Up to $500. So the natural question that comes is, well, aren't they going to need more money? And, our statement has been no. We'll see maybe in the future, but for the next biennium, no. So we've put those into the system, for the governor's office to evaluate, saying that we don't anticipate any fiscal impact from that. But that's counterintuitive for people, right? If you're adding a predator, people naturally think, and so, well, why aren't you asking for more money? It's like, well, with the way things are now, something happened on a multiplier or whatever. Brian has run the math for the Livestock Loss Board and said if they went to a Wyoming style multiplier based on the claims we get now, they'd run through their money pretty fast. That would probably necessitate a change in budget, but just what they've proposed so far for the next session, don't believe there's any fiscal impact. But that'll be a question when people see that. They just won't believe it. But we're like, they've got the money to handle it, at least for a biennium. And then if we see that it's going to be just like we did with black bears last session, if it turns out to be more than they can handle, you can always come back and ask for more in 2029.
And then you would have proof.
And then
you justification.
You'd
really have
proof.
no justification
Right.
at this point.
So just putting that out there, because you guys will probably get those questions when those things start to become more public and legislators and others start to see them.
Yeah, Mr. Shad, a question for you. So with money being available for these programs, I've tried to pursue a couple of them, but these programs are so extremely sophisticated with paperwork and on down the line with red tape. A lot of people get turned off with that. There's so much that needs to be done, and I don't know if it's word.
Mr. Professor, you must be talking about federal grants, because I think our Livestock Loss Board grant it's down to 4 pages maybe, and it's click, click, click. It's pretty quick.
Well, maybe I'm wrong then, because
I agree that I think the federal grants do have a lot more strings attached, a lot more detail to get through their system.
So I've tried to talk Jeremy into it because he's trying to hire a range rider up there on his own. And I think the reason he wouldn't put in for the grant is because he doesn't think he can't find anybody to hire anyway. That's, and to hire somebody to do it.
I'm going to speak out of turn here, and Ms. Goley said that Dalen's getting on here, but a number of range riders are procured through the Wildlife Services area, at least as far as the contact and management of them goes. So maybe he needs to talk to Dalen or Craig Glazier or somebody like that and see if there's some help associated.
So is Craig federal or state?
They're definitely federal, but for the state they're doing all these investigations for us and filling out the paperwork. 75% because it's their requirement, but they are 25%, let's say, helping us out for sure, because we wouldn't have the paperwork to go with it. But they're federal guys, but they could be paid. We're already paying for range riders that are employed. I don't want to say but somehow through Wildlife Services, we are already paying range riders with grant money. So you can use state money to pay for federal range riders, I think would be the short answer. And Dalen can correct
Our
me.
loss would pay,
Yeah.
would pay for a range rider. And that's what Jeremy, our loss is
Right.
more than enough to pay the salary of a pretty good rider.
Mr. Chair, that's my report, and I can see Dalen's on the
Very
screen
good.
there.
All right, well, thank you. Well, I'm gonna ask, does anybody, Eric or Alan, Lily, have any questions? Or Brian? Not seeing anything. So, Mr. Tidwell, you're on, and please introduce yourself. And
Okay, very good. Yes, Dalen Tidwell, State Director for USDA Wildlife Services. Um, Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to be with you today and give a brief update, kind of where things are, and so maybe a little bit where things are going as well. I'll, I guess I'll just kind of qualify kind of the status of our record database. I've alluded to in previous conversations. We were transitioned in for our MIS, Management Information System, now claimed to be antiquated, is now ORS, Operating Reporting System, as of March 13th. I can't explain or even attempt to explain the complications that have come with that. Makes me appreciate your all's experience with the brand's software and what it takes to adopt a new program. And so we're kind of in that phase of not only learning how to enter the data and keep the record, but they are still in development of creating a reporting engines or reporting functions. So I can get the data in there from the field, but as of now, we're not able to get it out. And so it's a little bit of a challenge. So with that said, I do have numbers for you today to kind of keep us in line with kind of a pace of status, but that is strictly our fail-safe paper, literal hard copy papers that I have to go through and by hand count each of the entries and come up with these numbers for you today. So Lori and I have been scratching through these numbers even yet this morning to make sure I could gather up enough information for you, both on the livestock loss board side of things as well. We maintain an independent database there, of course, and then with our aerial use reports, we do have an independent database with that as it relates to the stock growers and wool growers and Department of Livestock helicopters and such. So just rest assured, all the data is there and obtainable. It's just right now I can't push a button and get reports back immediately. So that's kind of the dilemma. But with that said, I'll report on our aerial use yet this fiscal year. I don't have to explain it to you. The weather has been crazy for us to find a day that the wind's not blowing or even with the snow cover and those sorts of things. So we've been pushed pretty hard. We've been behind all season to the point where we've worked over 11 weekends to try to get caught up, and so it's been tough. We're getting there though. I think we feel like we're up to the latest calls and the latest kills that are happening in response. We've had a little bit of maintenance downtime, of course, all mixed in there. But for total Hobbs hours since the fiscal year, obviously October to I had to stop at the end of April. All of May's use reports aren't in yet. But through the end of April, we have 740. Wait a minute. All right, I'm gonna have to. I didn't pull in the extra Hobbs hours for the use reports, but I can tell you for the take report of that total amount of time, 5,442 coyotes removed. And up through March, that's where I've got you. Up through March, 740 hobs. And so just in March and April have been a serious um, effort in load of trying to fly every good day and get things caught up. But yeah, that total take up through the end of April is 5,442. Another topic, unless anybody's got questions right there, I'll just move right into.
How's that compared to other years? Dalen, on the removal?
Uh, so we did a quick comparison. It's about like 40. It's where I have to cut it off. I guess it's all relative to where we cut off the time. So as it's pacing, we run between 7 and 9,000 coyotes a year typically. And so we're pacing right there. Being as late as we are in the season, we won't make 7,000. I doubt this year. It slows down quite a bit in the summer months. So I would say we're 2,000 below average, or at least the latest average. There's been years I look way back, probably 15 years ago, it was right around that 4 and 5,000 a year. But that was before we were able to work the High Line with the additional helicopter and address those concerns up north. So those numbers have really been developed over the last 5, 6 years due to the request and the need up north. So yeah, I would say we're still about 2,000 below a normal season as it tracks, I would guess, if I were to see how it plays out.
Well, that would make sense in my travels because I see a lot more coyotes out when I'm traveling down the roads through the farms than normal.
Yeah,
They
Mr.
seem
Chair,
to
that's certainly fair to say. It's just a simple opportunity and exposure and being able to get out there and keep up with the request. So hopefully we're able to meet the need. Obviously with the losses, like I say, we scramble hard every time to get to those as they come, but they just keep coming. So so we're still working. Um, Another subject that's probably even made the airwaves in a discussion about the M44s being allowed back into the MOU with the BLM with Wildlife Services. That is a thing. That is something that has been reinstated as an option. Now, and you've heard me talk about this over the many years now. We have not been putting M44s on BLM land for a number of years. In fact, we quit writing it into our annual work plans as of 2019 was the last time that we even addressed it in our plans. Since 2019, we've just declared we don't. Um, we can if we need to, but we don't use M44s on BLM lands. And so that's kind of how we're going to approach this going forward. If we come into a unique scenario of a landlocked BLM allotment that's just the spot that is needed for that tool, we can still address it. We would go through the pesticide use proposals and have that direct conversation with that a district office with the BLM to if that became the tool of choice. But really, I'll tell you, because of our aviation program and the relationship that we have with you all, that is the tool that would be the appropriate tool to use in most of all these cases. And that's different than some other states. Some other states don't have that option like we do here in Montana. And so they rely pretty heavy on that tool to be used. But because we do have our aerial program here that can meet that need, we have just decided that that's not something we need to address on BLM land. So on private lands, of course, we do and can continue and will continue to use M44s. And that a component to this conversation is the appropriations bill that had it restricted, I believe 2 years ago was written in, is that is no longer a restriction for us as an agency anymore. So we can use M44s on private land and we will choose to do so, if it's the appropriate tool. So that is great. I mean, that's just, like I say, one part of the options that we have to address any predation. Next subject is our environmental impact statement. Due to the time restrictions of the court request of basically writing a grizzly bear environmental impact statement, we're with a lot of serious concern and effort, we are making pace with the time schedule, and it is prepared and ready to go out to agency comment within the next week or so. I believe the Department of Livestock was contacted prior to identify someone to be a part of that process. So I don't recall who exactly, but we will communicate that obviously with the distribution of the agency comment period here, like I say, within the next couple weeks. So we plan to make it. We had a short, less than a 2 year turnaround to write this thing and get it out by, I believe, November, of November is when it has to be complete with public comment and final revisions and everything ready to go to meet that court mandated time frame. Let's see. So, budget analyst. You can tell I'm a little bit frazzled still, just in keeping everything rolling here on a lot of balls juggling in the air at once. But I did get good notice prior of the ability to hire some administrative staff, budget analysts specifically, and we were excited and thought we're going to move forward. And then I kind of got the bait and switch where, yeah, you can, but it's going to be hired through a national panel under APHIS, I guess PPQ and Wildlife Services. There's a national hiring announcement, and they're just going to select whoever comes off of that panel without any hiring manager's input. So a little bit of a frustration. I mean, we can hope we get someone that understands our mission and is committed and, you know, has those skills, obviously, but to be able to work in a small office like we have here, that's my wish and a gamble that we're going to be up against. So, but it will be great to have just some help to be able to everything from pay to purchasing to contracting. Everything runs through that position here at the state office. I think that's kind of where I'm at with. Oh, I do have some IR numbers, investigative report numbers, if everybody's curious. Again, to be able to keep it simple, fiscal year to date, we are up to date on the IRs that are in the office here. So I'll start with Black Bear. I've got one horse, uh, 6 calves, 2 goats, 3 sheep. Grizzly bear is 21 calves and 13 cattle. Mountain lion, we're looking at 1 alpaca, 1 calf, 7 goats, 2 lambs, and 6 sheep. And then wolf, 12 calves, 4 cattle, 3 guard dogs, 3 lambs, and 6 sheep. Kind of give you up to date on the scoreboard of kind of what's happening with the investigative reports. So, and then I will just kind of close with a little bit of a follow-up comment with the range rider discussion that was brought up a bit ago. So we do maintain USDA Wildlife Services employed range rider program. And we've had as many as 5 over the areas from the allotments down out of the Gravelies, up out of the Eureka Trigo area. CSKT is now being, this year a part of the program. And the Salish Mountains there, and then the Blackfeet stock growers as well. And our program, and it's just simply, I mean, we don't have enough money to go everywhere, but we've also have to develop this proof of concept idea to help folks understand, where it works, how it works. And so our goal is to get that out there and have folks utilize it and to get that additional tool in place. I I have drawn the line and say we do need cooperative effort or a cost share, just simply to have buy-in that folks that are that committed and believe in the program are willing to put up funds to match, and we will match. We hire, we provide the trailer and the truck and horse hire and those sorts of things. But as was commented earlier, it's to find all those folks that have those skill sets is a unicorn. It's very, very hard to find someone that's willing to work on a seasonal basis and to be trustworthy, to be turned loose in the backcountry. Um, they're just not there anymore. So I'll put that caveat on there that it's very, very difficult to find employees to do that. But that is kind of how our initial Range Rider portion of our non-lethal initiative program is set up. So those come with, and as you stated before too, it's okay for the state um, grants that through the Livestock Loss Board are utilized as matching funds for our program. So that's a way that folks can be involved and basically put this tool to use in the right area. I have narrowed it down also to the type. This is not to buy a private cowboy for somebody. That is not the intent. It is designed in an allotment scenario, public lands primarily, or shared tribal lands, or grazing allotments, grazing associations, where multiple grazing members come together in association that can benefit the entire area. Those are some of the caveat and restrictions that we've applied to it. Um, so it does narrow down kind of the options, but it is still a major part of our program. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. If I've got any more questions, certainly I'll be available.
So is there someone employed up there for the Blackfeet right now? Or
There is, yes, there is. Yep, for the Blackfeet stock growers in fact, he's been a term employee that keeps coming back year after year. I think this will be, maybe 3, 4 years now, at least.
but where his territory is then? So, all right, well, thank you. Any other questions for?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I just wonder what the pay scale is for a range rider. I've got a couple people who have enough experience around bears and things that they might be interested. But
So let me think here. It's kind of depends on qualifications. We can hire from a GS 3, 4, and 5. If you were to look at the pay scale for that on the hourly basis, it's a little misleading because when you pull that up on the OPM website, it's on the annual, and so you'd have to kind of break that down to less than 1,300 or 1,039 hours. We figure it's roughly a 5 to 6 month position based on when we can go out on range and all the others. But it's right around that 20 to maybe 20 to $20 an hour. 18 to 20 something dollars an hour is what it breaks down to. Again, we provide a we call it horse hire. They have to provide their own horses and as a requirement, but we reimburse that at, I think it's $450 a month for hire. As part of that, they do get the truck and the trailer, basically any equipment, trail cameras. Trail cameras is a huge part of the program, is being able to get eyes out in all locations, keep track of patterns of predators in relation to where the livestock is. You have to stay with the livestock all the time. It's an everyday job. It's an all day, everyday job. Um, but yeah, there's enough compensation for folks that are happy. I mean, the type of work that's done, and if they fully believe in the cause and get out there and hustle, it's pretty rewarding.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And Dalen, if I get that, I would assume that's June to September, basically. Is that when they're when you're needing them?
Yeah, correct. When they
Correct.
go out on grass, of obviously is the intense time, but we usually try to bring them on the first to middle of May, and
Okay.
then we will be budgeted to keep them through the middle of October as everything
Okay.
comes off range.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Dalen.
Yes, very welcome, and thank you.
All right. So. We are. Somebody's messing with the temperature a little.
I know he's making it cold in here.
Turned it up a little.
Yeah, doesn't know whether you have a jacket on or not,
Yeah.
or a vest.
Me and air conditioner don't agree very well.
All right. Okay, we're gonna move on to animal health.
Just so everybody knows, Dr. Szymanski was in here earlier this morning, but she has had to run to Great Falls for a meeting of the Montana Emergency Planners. I don't know exactly what that group's called, but she's going to be speaking to them at about 11 o'clock or so. So she's on her way to Great Falls. So we get Dr. Kalazak here for the animal health report today.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Emily Kalazak, Animal Health Bureau Chief, Assistant State Veterinarian. We have a few agenda items, only one requiring board action today, which is an out-of-state travel request. As part of the NADPREP grant, which is the Emergency Preparedness Grant from USDA that you've heard about before, that we are working with the contractor to develop the communications plan that we would use in the event of a national foreign animal disease outbreak that required a national stop movement. The contractor has helped organize meetings with a variety of stakeholder groups, one of which was several representatives from the Livestock Marketing Association. And out of that meeting, they extended an invitation for someone from our office to attend their annual meeting in South Dakota later this summer. Coming up actually only a few weeks in June. And so the out-of-state travel request is for Dr. Szymanski to travel to South Dakota to attend the LMA annual meeting as part of that invitation.
And where's the money? Is this out of their animal health budget?
It would come out of the NADPREP grant itself. There's travel funding in that grant.
Okay, so it's minimal impact on the budget then.
Yep, correct. It's good. Well, that's what the NADPREP grant is for. So.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the out-of-state travel to the LMA meetings in South Dakota.
Okay, we have a second.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Any discussion? Not seeing any, hearing none. All in favor of the motion to accept the request for out-of-state travel to the LMA meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion's carried.
All right, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, our second update is wanted to provide some information on the Avian influenza surveillance in dairy cattle that we had been doing up until May 1st. We had been, in order to get our state classified as HPAI free in dairy cattle, we had been doing monthly surveillance of bulk tanks initially, and then monthly, we had gone to monthly surveillance of the silos, which would be the pooled milk collected in Great Falls and Billings at those plants. Given the monthly sampling, we felt that that was not frequent enough to detect an infection early enough to take action to protect human health in that case. Not from the pasteurized milk coming out of those plants, not concerned about that as a risk, but knowing that a lot of our dairies are in locations where people were drinking raw milk from those cows before it was going into a commercial processing stream. And so we were starting to get some additional pushback from USDA about extra requirements they wanted to place on those silo samples. We felt like we were not getting enough value from that sampling to justify continuing the inconvenience to our industry. And so reached out to dairy producers, industry members to get their acceptance of discontinuing that silo sampling. And so as of May 1st, we did discontinue that silo sampling. Almost concurrently with our decision to do that, USDA announced an update to the federal order so that lactating dairy cattle from states that had achieved the unaffected status would no longer require individual cow tests to ship across state lines. We export very, very few lactating dairy cattle other than direct to slaughter, which were already exempt from that testing requirement anyway. And so we don't think this will be a huge burden for Montana producers who may be exporting lactating dairy cattle, but wanted to let you know that we made this decision immediately prior to USDA changing the federal order. And so there may be a little bit of an impact, but we don't expect it to be significant.
Lily, do you have any comments or questions or anything?
I don't. That sounds good. I feel like we've talked about hybrid, so.
All right.
Great. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, our third item on the agenda, wanted to provide a quick update. You may have all seen in the last several weeks, USDA announced a detection of pseudorabies in a small commercial swine facility in Iowa. It's the first detection of pseudorabies in commercial swine in the US in 20 years. But we know that feral swine still carry the disease. And so states that have large feral swine populations, reintroduction of that disease has been an ongoing risk. The case in Iowa, they have traced back to some swine herd in Texas that was an outdoor, what USDA calls a transitional swine herd. And so they had potential exposure to feral swine. Montana got involved because we had a trace out from the herd in Iowa. 2 boars that had been at the affected facility in Iowa were used to breed some sows in Montana, part of an outdoor, very small herd. There were only 7 animals part of the herd in Montana. They have undergone 1 whole herd test, and they will have a second whole herd test coming up in a few weeks, the middle of June. Their first whole herd test was negative. We think they're very low risk, but wanted to let you know since we were touched by that sort of unusual disease event.
William, yeah, William.
On the last, we had a pork producers association meeting here a couple of weeks ago, and they said that they had that pig that had pseudorabies had made contact with the wild pigs there, and then was sold to Iowa.
Yes.
And so when they put a 5-mile radius or surveillance around there, there's one of the most densely populated places in Iowa. There was over 100,000 pigs there that area.
So was this an outdoor herd in Iowa, also a small outdoor herd, or was it?
Mr. Chairman, no, the facility in Iowa wasn't considered a commercial swine facility. Those animals were housed indoors. They had just imported animals from that Texas herd. The boars that came from Iowa through Montana, they never tested positive. They were just housed in the facility with the positive animals from Texas. And so we were considered a trace out as part of the investigation.
So in the pork produce of it, that's kind of a red flag, maybe
Oh,
where you're
yes.
gonna bring boars in from where?
Actually didn't know about the boars, but I knew about the super rabies pig. I mean, so which breeder would have that been with the boars? The same facility or?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kleinsasser, I believe the facility in Iowa had pigs from many sources and was a genetics type herd with multiple heritage breeds that are used on a variety of of outdoor transitional herd operations.
Again, the background on this scenario is something we've talked about a lot, which is, how do we educate folks about transporting animals? Because I think one of the learnings there is that these animals were destined for Washington, but they made a stopover in Montana. What should happen is, they should have declared, they're going to Montana, then they're going to Washington, or going to Washington, then they're coming back to Montana, so that healths could be written to the states where they were going to stop and spend time. I'm sure a health was written to Washington, and it really wasn't declared that they would be doing anything more than traveling through Montana. I will say the luck here in Washington is that the individual admitted that they had stopped in Montana. That's how we even know they stopped in Montana. It's always one of those scenarios of like, this is why we need people following the regulations. This is why we need the traceability, because if pseudorabies became a more expansive problem in the swine industry, if we didn't know that information, we wouldn't even know these pigs had been in Montana and that we had something we need to look at. So I appreciate their honesty, but at the same time, this is why people need to, like, okay, maybe your destination is Washington. It doesn't matter what species we're talking about. But if you're going to stop and spend a night or two or a week in Montana, you need to declare that so we can get a health to Montana. Then we could have done a health from Montana to Washington and Washington back. That's the way it should have happened. So there's an education point there about traveling through means traveling through. It means not stopping. If you're stopping, then you need to let us know, and you need to comply with our import regulations. So there's things to educate on there, because I do believe there are people who would think, well, we're eventually Washington is where they're going to end up, so we don't really have to say where they're going to stop along the way. But this is a case that shows it's important to know where they stop along the way.
Correct, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Honeycutt. The owner of the boars that led to us being involved, those animals were destined for Washington. He was very cooperative with Washington, gave them additional information about where these animals had been. We did not have a health certificate for these boars to come to Montana. And so it was a non-compliant movement. We currently do not require pseudorabies testing for swine coming into Montana. And so we would not necessarily have had testing information on these animals, but we would have had more direct traceability if they had the health certificate they were supposed to.
So what kind of teeth do we have in this requirement?
Well, for the individual that did the movement, they're in another state. So that really kind of, and obviously the person who received them was not under an obligation to, you're counting on the person who's bringing them to you to have complied with their animal health requirements. So the fact that you're dealing with someone out of state limits what we can do. But again, I just bring it up from the standpoint of, this is why we need people doing the right things, because we need the traceability. We talk about traceability a lot. Dr. Szymanski and I are going to go to stock growers on Friday. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about traceability, and it's always a key number one topic at every meeting we go to. But it's only as good as people actually saying this is what we're doing, right? This is what we're doing, and getting it. And like you said, from the teeth standpoint, a lot of times if it's a veterinarian out of state that wrote a health certificate that was erroneous, or if it was a producer out of state who didn't give all the information to the veterinarian so they could write an accurate health certificate, because they're out of our jurisdiction, our power, our control, we're limited with that. And I don't know, in this case, I don't think there's anything we could have said that the individual who received them did anything wrong, because they have to operate on an assumption that the person who's bringing those animals to them has gotten their health certificate and done what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Honeycutt, there was some education provided to the Montana swine owner, the district investigator from Brands for their area, followed up with them. So it is an ongoing outreach effort.
Yes.
I just had a comment. When we stress traceability, that's what saved us in this case, because the damage was minimal. Everybody could trace exactly where these pig movements were, and instead of assuming they were here, they were there, they weren't. Everybody could place a finger, and that was a job well done with traceability. That's part of the SHIP program, and Canada actually is adopting a program. They're going as far as in the U.S. here. We use AgView to trace the movement. But in Canada, when they ship a load of pigs, they have a digital they slap on the truck and they trace it. They have a digital trail instead of a physical trail, I guess.
But, what about the movements that don't get anything?
That's the scary part.
Yeah. That's the part that I would worry more about. At least, there was an ability to even though it might have been not as streamlined as we'd like, it was ability to trace. But if they just loaded up the pigs in Iowa and hauled them to somewhere in Montana and dropped them off, and then that guy hauled them to Boston or whatever.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, people who are willing to ignore animal movement requirements, when we catch them, we do our best for there to be consequences for those illegal movements, but we know that we don't hear about a lot of them. Mr. Chairman, I wanted to provide one additional quick update. A while ago now, the board had provided approval for Dr. Peterson to travel out of state and assist with TB testing in order to get CCT certified. Yesterday, she had done that recently, and then yesterday we had a request for a CCT at one of our full studs in Montana, and so she was able to go do that CCT, or at least inject for that CCT. She'll go back and read it on Friday, and so just wanted to provide a thank you for you all for the support for sending Dr. Peterson for that training, and that it has already provided benefit for us. So
good decision.
Yeah,
it doesn't happen all the time. But
It's over there.
Yeah.
that's everything for animal health today, unless there are any additional questions.
One little question, screw
Mhm.
where are we at with that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kleinsasser, the most recent update I saw yesterday, there is several weeks ago, Mexico picked up an additional state as affected with New World screwworm. And the nearest case as of yesterday was a calf in that new state 55 miles south of the U.S. border. So it is closer.
And what was the movement? Was that a local residential calf, or that it moved from another state, or what?
Mr. Chairman, USDA and Senesiga have not provided any additional case information on that calf. Last week there was a cat, similar distance in the same state, and no information was provided about the cat either. So we don't know if those were locally acquired transmission or if the animals were moved from further south.
If you go back one detection before, which was 70 miles, a little further away from the border, that was an umbilical lesion, and so I would think that you would have to suspect that in that case, that means the flies were present. It wasn't an illegal movement or movement from an affected area into an unaffected area. That signals that the flies are present and active in that. Is that Nuevo Leon? I've got that right, I think. Just south of like Corpus Christi, McAllen, Texas, if you're familiar with South Texas, down that way.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Honeycutt, I apologize for my lack of Spanish pronunciation. The state with the closest case now, it's I believe it's COAHU. It is not. It's an addition to Nuevo Leon and Tamaulipas.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one.
Yeah.
So that is where the closest detections are. Nuevo Leon and Tamaulipas continue to have cases between 180 or 75 miles of the border.
And this is a season that the more apt to spread, correct?
Correct. Mr. Chairman, we're into the time of year where we expect that fly to do well, especially in the southern U.S. So higher risk time of year.
Any questions? Not seeing any. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Alicia is next.
She was here.
Good morning, everyone. I don't think I get to say that too often in these meetings, so I'll do it.
Long time no see.
I know it. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, all I have for you today is just a very brief update on our USDA on-site audit. Unfortunately, I don't have any definitive news. Our exit meeting, I believe, is scheduled June 21st. So USDA takes some time to look at everything, and there's some additional follow-up questions that we're still sending over paperwork and stuff like that before they make our determination. But kind of fresh on the heels of it, I see some additional training on SRMs in our state. We had some good discussions about that. Well,
Do you want to explain SRMs for people that don't?
I was just going to ask, what is it?
Thank you, Jake.
Like crazy acronyms from me. You guys don't have your cheat sheet? I thought I gave you one.
It's not in here.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Fettis, SRMs are specified risk materials. We control these at beef slaughter to prevent people from getting mad cow disease. Don't ask me to say the scientific name. I can't. I've tried, but you all know it as mad cow disease. So this is the spinal column, eyes, brain. I know there's a couple more that are not fresh on my mind, but the point is that we found in some of our establishments, they were saying that all SRMs were removed at slaughter, but the vertebral column was still present for cutting steaks and stuff like that. So the risk wasn't adequately controlled in some of those plans. So we're going to do some retraining on that to make sure we're being really vigilant about what our plants say they're doing versus what we're seeing actually happen. We also had some education on how our verification plans look. So historically, what has happened, if a plant is suspended for some reason, they would have a verification plan that would go into effect for 90 days. And at the end of the 90-day period, we would stop monitoring any corrective actions that they propose. This was a misunderstanding on my part. I'll take full ownership of it. But our program has not enforced that those corrective actions became permanent in the establishment. We basically said, okay, be on your best behavior for 90 days. And then if you made changes that you don't like, you can shift backwards. USDA has confirmed that that's not really the intention of those. The idea is that we are confirming for 90 days they're doing it, and then after 90 days they should continue to do it, which makes sense.
Yep.
Looking back at it. So as we deal with enforcements going forward, we're going to put some language out there. We're going to make sure that plants understand this change so we can be in line with what USDA intended those to be used for. So those were kind of the major ticket items that are on my radar at this moment. Super huge kudos to Jay. He's not here. He's at MSU helping them teach HACCP right now, but we are all caught up on our FSAs, which was one of our audit findings last time. So that is not a discussion anymore. So the previous audit findings have been not carried over. Now we move on to the new things. So we've got staff training scheduled at the end of June. It was already scheduled to do retraining of staff. And I guess once we get closer to the end of June, if there's more to know, I'll let you know.
So, it's my understanding, and it's very limited understanding, but the ag bill that passed out of the House, from my understanding, has a provision for custom exempt to sell meat basically across the counter. Do you know anything about that?
Mr. Chairman, I have not heard anything about that specifically. I would guess that if that had gone through, USDA would have notified us of the change, but I have not.
Well, no, it's only halfway.
Okay.
Actually, it's just the House. From what I understanding, the ag bill that passed out of the House had that provision. It has to go to the Senate, and who knows what happens there. But so, Jake.
Yeah, so it is in the farm bill that passed the House that basically custom exempt meat could be sold one time, retail exempt, essentially, through a retail counter. Now, the reason you haven't heard about it is because it's just through the House, has to go to the Senate. My understanding from my contacts in DC is that some ag organizations got behind it to placate the individual that brought the request because he's gaining a lot of power in DC and they want him on their side, and it's not going to go anywhere. But
it's still
it's there. It is in the farm bill, so if that gets passed and signed without any amendments to that provision, that is a possibility.
So when you say one time, what's the benefit of just one time, or how maybe I misunderstood?
Well, right now you can't sell custom exempt meat to anybody. It's for your own consumption only because it's not coming through an inspected plant. This would allow, say my meat shop to slaughter a custom exempt, process a custom exempt, and sell it to customers. Right now you can't do that. It has to be inspected.
Without inspection.
Which I'm assuming USDA will fight tooth and nail.
Well, you would hope so.
Because
I know a lot of my grandson-in-law has a custom exempt plant, and they are meticulous as far as cleanliness. I would not have any, they do our processing for our own product, so I have confidence in them. But, and him and I were visiting a little bit about it, and that might be, all right for me. But I said, the problem is not every custom exempt plant is quite as meticulous as you are. And so then the risk to the industry, that's what, if we get some people have some illness from beef, all of a sudden, might have a hard time selling beef at the price it is today. But if they start worrying about the health issues of it, it's dang sure going to be hard to sell.
I would say that it doesn't matter how meticulous or clean you are as a custom exempt. The big thing that really, I think, grabs people's attention, and I did this with a member of our congressional delegation who was considering sponsoring, I won't name names, but was considering sponsoring. I think it was called the Prime Act. I get it mixed up with another one. There was one act that was going through at one point in time, separate and apart from the Farm Bill, that would have allowed for state inspected programs to sell across state lines. That I've actually always been totally supportive of, because I think the job we do, if we are meeting, or if we are found to be meeting or exceeding federal regulations, then why would there be a limitation? Maybe I understand international export, but if we have a state inspected plant in Sydney and they want to sell meat into Dickinson, North Dakota, why can't they do that, right? I mean, that's a different scenario than the other act was about allowing custom exempts to sell retail. And yes, there were provisions about locality. They could only sell within the state or within certain geography. But what I explained to them, and I think is a major talking point, as opposed to being for or against, just saying, well, maybe you want to understand what the differences are between what happens in a USDA or state inspected facility getting the mark of inspection versus what happens in a custom exempt. And when you tell people in a custom exempt environment, we go in there twice a year to look, and maybe sometimes when we show up, they're not even processing anything at that time because of the timing, and that there's not regular E. coli surveillance, there's not regular listeria surveillance, there's no one seeing what the condition of the animals are before they're slaughtered. So is it possible that downer cows, I hope none of our custom exempts are doing that, but is it possible that downer cows that would not be able to be slaughtered in Jake's plant under inspection are getting slaughtered because people bring them in and they go ahead and do it? We just talked about the specified risk materials. That is a big deal for the industry because it's hard to explain to people what one potential human case of BSE or mad cow would be and what damage that would cause to our beef industry and to our cattle producers. And yes, we have an obligation to our processors, but we have an obligation to the bigger industry to make sure that we're protecting that. So are they slaughtering 6-year-old animals and providing people prime ribs and T-bones and things that would not be happening at Amsterdam Meats under inspection? There's not post-mortem inspection. So do we trust that every custom exempt knows what types of lesions for potential TB infections, things they should be looking for? Are they really taking a good look at the offal in a post-mortem examination the way our inspectors are? And I don't say that to scare people. I mean, when you've got to have trust in the custom exempt processor you're asking to do your meat, but that is between you and them. And there's a higher level of risk, and it should be a risk that you're opting into. But for the general consumer, they're going to assume that all those things I just mentioned that have been protecting them from mad cow, E. coli, listeria, bovine tuberculosis, that all those things are happening. And we hope they're happening. We go in and look at our custom exempts the number of times we're required to look at them, but we're not there every day the way we are Amsterdam Meats. And we're not looking at every animal before it's slaughtered. We're not looking at every animal after it's slaughtered. We're not watching it through the processing. And once you explain those differences, it does click for people. Okay, maybe we shouldn't open that up. Maybe that's not as good an idea as I thought it sounded like. That there's a place for the custom exemption, but for retail and wholesale, the standards we've put in place are there. And I usually do that as opposed to trying to say I'm for or against it. I'm just saying that whatever decision you make, you should understand that the two processes are very, very different. And then you have to make a decision about whether you would accept that risk or not. And then you make up your own mind about whether you think that's a good policy. I would say most people, after they hear those differences, decide, no, it doesn't sound like what we should be doing. We don't think that will be the best thing for the beef industry in the long run. It opens up a lot of risk that the beef industry doesn't want to assume. But that's the issue, right? But there are people who, because of this bottleneck, because of the price of beef, because of everything, there's all those drivers that are making people consider, some different standard for the quality of product or the quality of inspection of the product to get more available in a hope that creates more value for producers, decreases the cost to consumers. And maybe you do get those wins, but what's the risk that comes with trying to get those wins? And individuals have to make those decisions.
I do think that you're going to see this probably die because the congressman carrying that bill just lost a highly contentious primary.
Oh, now I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So
I'll take care of that.
Yeah, I think any backing he had for this is probably going away because he won't be there. Yeah. So I don't think we'll have to worry about it, but it was being pushed through.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Yes, Eric.
Mr. Chairman, just nothing, not picking on anybody, but just a minor point here because it just has always kind of been my pet peeve. But the correct name for the disease is bovine spongiform encephalopathy, which can be, in a very rare cases, can be transmitted to humans through consumption of spinal tissue. The term mad cow was created by anti-meat zealots who are trying to curb demand and spare consumers. And as we're representing the beef industry, I think we should refer to it as bovine spongiform encephalopathy, or BSE.
Thank you, Eric. Good point. That's one of the reasons I wanted Alicia to come and give just an update today, even though we're nowhere near the final audit. I do know that the handling of specified risk materials and any sort of recommitment to making sure people are handling that correctly, just so the board is aware, that will create some angst among some of our processors who, if you are buying cull cows that are over 30 months of age, you are giving up a lot of value not to be able to do every single type of product that you want to sell from those. And so I think the risk is there that, and I hate to say it, we're in business. We know that there's always people out there who are looking for an edge. And sometimes there's an opportunity for people to buy a cheaper animal and try to get the most value out of it. And that temptation is always there. And so I just think one of the reasons I wanted this to come before the board today was just because of that particular scenario, because I do think it's one of the things that I personally get a lot of blowback from people about, saying, I don't understand why these cull cows can't, we can't do every product line we want to do off of them. And you have to explain to them, there is a rule that cattle over 30 months of age cannot be processed in this way. And there is a legitimate need in the industry for managing that risk of why that regulation's in place. And yes, that does mean giving up a lot of value especially if you're trying to buy it and turn it into a retail product. But if you're going to deal in buying a lot of cull cows, you need to process them the way they were intended. And I think in our custom exempts, we've had that issue with some of the custom exempts that have come before this board, which is, customers, who are having you process their beef for them don't always understand that. And they don't understand, well, I bought a half a cull cow. Why can't I get a prime rib? Why can't I get T-bones? Why? And it could be a contentious conversation. That's why I wanted the board to be aware of it, because as we do a recommitment to it, as Ms. Love has said today, there'll be people who will push back on it.
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Honeycutt, I think that is a really important thing to remind folks of. It's been a few years since we've had a meat audit, but as you guys remember, whenever there's an audit, if there's any discrepancies found, that means corrective action needs to be applied to the program, and that means the industry is impacted by those corrective actions. So I haven't worked through, right? We're still kind of early on, but with this auditor, I anticipate there'll be some focused task work on the inspected plants. There's probably going to be some focus on our custom plants as well, making sure everyone's on the same page, making sure everything is as it ought to be. That's not saying that every plant out there is doing it wrong. It's not saying every custom out there is doing it wrong. But oftentimes, once you find a little wrinkle, you start to make a little bit of a wave. So I think it's very realistic as we go into the second half of our custom reviews that there'll be a focus on this. And hopefully that doesn't create too much work for you good folks, but it might.
So custom exempts are audited also?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Curry, yes. We do one custom review as part of our audit process. So 7 plants this year, 1 custom, 1 surveillance, and then 1 office visit is how we were audited this go round. BSC did not come up during this year's custom review because we inspected a custom poultry plant, and chickens do not have any risk of SRMs, so it didn't come up during that visit. But whenever there's any type of concern raised, we have to show program-wide that we're up to snuff.
Okay.
I have a quick question.
Yes, Lily.
Can I just get clarification on our updates from Mike? It keeps talking about the milk audit, and I thought that we passed that. Like, I remember getting all the text messages that was like, the audit was good, everything's great. So if you could just shed some light on that.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Anderson, I have not received formal paperwork from FDA on our audit. I honestly have not heard from Joey in quite a few months. Okay. With everything going on with FDA, she was supposed to come on site to do an audit. Her travel budget got cut, and so she did a paper audit, and we got all of everything she asked for submitted at the beginning of the year. But I'm just kind of keeping it as a standing item for the board until I get that official notification from FDA. I don't want the communication to come through and me to not do that appropriate follow-up with the board. So it's kind of a placeholder for myself until it's finalized, but I understand how that's confusing and I apologize.
No, that's okay. Thank you. That's just what I was wondering, because I was like, I was stressing a little bit.
No, the meat, milk, and egg program is highly audited. I think we can say whether it's meat, whether it's milk, or whether it's eggs, it's highly audited.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Honeycutt, I really want to thank the federal government for making sure all of my 3-year audits happen the same year every 3 years. I greatly appreciate that endeavor.
Hey, are there other questions or comments?
I had a question.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, get your name here.
Look.
Anyway, on Mike's weekly updates, there are certain plants that are sometimes right now there's currently one that's not doing beef. I see in your updates
suspended. Yes.
Yeah, I don't want to mention any names. So what's behind that?
So Mr. Chairman, Mr. Feinsaucer, as a result of our federal audit, 2 of our state establishments were suspended. One of them was associated with SRM issues, and the other one was associated with SRM and slaughter issues. So both of those establishments have been released from their suspension. They've submitted acceptable corrective actions, but that is why.
I'm glad Mr. Kleinsaucer asked that question. It was one of the things I'll point out that I don't know if it's a lesson that Ms. Love wanted to learn, but I guess I never knew until the work being done with the auditor within these plants that we had the ability to carve out and do a suspension in a plant by species. So for these plants that are doing mixed species, that you could have a suspension for beef slaughter, but even though they had a suspension for beef slaughter, they could continue to slaughter pork, poultry, lamb, whatever. That's a new tool in the toolbox, because usually when we have done a suspension, it is blanket across the board. That does take, for those that are doing mixed species, if they've got a problem with one type of slaughter, and being able to isolate it down like that does take some of the sting maybe out, if they do have other species that they can continue to do while they're working on their corrective actions for whatever the suspension was for. So
Yes.
So what was the time frame that they were suspended?
So Mr. Chairman, let me think back through it. I will let you know that the audit process dealing with suspension simultaneously is a whirlwind. So one of our establishments was suspended for 5 business days. We allowed some temporary modifications so that they could slaughter, and then their full release happened after that. The next establishment had, let me think through this, I want to make sure I'm being accurate right now. They were suspended for about a week, so 5 working days. They opted to utilize some other species processing while they kind of got together their corrective actions. So the time frames were a little bit longer. Part of that was the intensity of the issues that were discovered, and part of that was just having some communication challenges. Unfortunately, one of the owners couldn't be on site during the audit. From what I'm learning kind of post-audit, some of the communication that happened between his staff, my staff, everybody, communication wasn't as clean as I would have liked it to have been. And that has created some delays in kind of getting everything sorted back out.
No, that's unfortunate, because it's, as we know, everybody, the industry's still fairly backed up. Is that correct, Jake?
Yeah.
So your 5 days, that really backs things up.
And Mr. Chairman, to be clear, that was for beef processing only. That establishment was able to do other species work.
Okay. Yes, Jake.
I do think it's important that facilities understand when you're suspended, that means you're suspended and you can't continue processing. That has, it's been an issue a couple times, and if you're suspended, that means you're suspended. That doesn't mean you can try to sneak something through and do a product that your species that you're suspended for, because it just leads to more problems. Mm-hmm. And we've discussed that here around this table before, what teeth we have in regards to suspensions and people continuing to do things that they're told not to do. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of teeth in it, and I don't know how you give more teeth in it and make it more serious, but sometimes there are facilities and people, and it's no different. It's every industry, right? You slap them on the wrist and they say, okay, well, I'm going to do it again and again and again and again. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of teeth to make sure that that doesn't happen. But I mean, I guess I'm just trying to say that I think facilities need to realize when they're suspended, and not do any processing they're not supposed to.
So that just brings up a thought as far as teeth. So let's just compare a USDA inspected plant in Montana and a state inspected plant in Montana that gets suspended for a similar violation. What teeth would the feds have over that plant that Montana, that this department would not have?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know that they have substantially more teeth than we do. As Dr. Smancy would say if she was here, stop, or we'll write you another letter and tell you to stop again. Eventually, and this is not a tool that our agency has reached for before that I'm aware of. There is verbiage in there to discuss withdrawing a state granted inspection. So that is a tool that exists. Every time we've even mentioned that discussion, establishments seem to conveniently go to federal inspection and become a USDA plant instead. So that has not been something we've had to work through the process on, but I would say that if we were very concerned about utilizing additional teeth, we would begin the process to withdraw a state granted inspection, which means they would not be able to sell wholesale product anymore. So that is the current teeth that exists, but it's kind of a nuclear option. So we have not gone down that road.
Well, the biggest teeth you have to that is that if you're processing a product or slaughtering without benefit of inspection, you've got the recall recommendation. And then if they don't accept the recall recommendation, you have actions you can take to detain. I don't know, there's different words for detain versus retain, but you've got those things you can do to stop that from entering commerce until you get things sorted out. I remember, this was before Miss Love's time, I remember a custom exempt that we worked through. And in that case, I mean, the teeth was that, you know, every bit of this product you have sitting here has to be destroyed because of what you did. And so they had to go to people who had paid for animals, and now we're not going to get the meat for their freezer. And that's pretty good teeth, you know, or should be pretty good teeth. To Mr. Fettis's point, if someone was suspended for beef slaughter, for example, and they continued to do a beef slaughter, well, then we would go through the process of saying, well, you did that product without benefit of inspection. It now has to be recalled, and it may not. I mean, in some cases, you can recover that by doing other processes, and you can get it back to where you can sell it. In some cases, the only option with it is now for it to be denatured and destroyed, and that potential loss of economic value, you would hope, would be enough teeth for people to behave properly. And so, I mean, that's where your teeth is, more so on the maybe administrative items. We do have, and we did do a license revocation here half a year ago, whenever that was. So it's not that but those are things we don't like to do either, right? I mean, that's not the first option. There's been lots of failed opportunities to correct before we ever get to that type of action. But you would hope that the loss of economic value, the loss of revenue, particularly for very low, tight margin businesses. Mr. Fettis probably wants me to say that on the record, low, tight margin businesses.
Very accurate.
Contrary, or if a margin even exists, contrary to what we might hear in some other publications, but that you would think the loss of revenue or the potential loss of revenue would be enough to get people to do what they're supposed to do.
Okay. Are questions from anyone else? Not seeing any. So thank you, Ms. Long,
Thank you, Board.
and good luck with the finalization of your audit process.
Now all we do is wait.
So,
No, so I'm going to be representing brands today. Mr. Bodner is in Mexico. We will make sure he is checked thoroughly for screwworm before we let him back into the office. But he is, as we said last time when we set this meeting, I knew he was going to be on vacation. And so he only had one agenda item for today. I think we're about to set a speed record. I don't know, Mr. Redfield, you normally do good chairing, but we might beat one of your records today as we're here at the last official agenda item. But the only item that Jay had for you for this time was a out-of-state travel request for the International Livestock Identification Association meeting. You guys have been on the board. You're familiar with this. It's the brands and livestock law enforcement from the U.S., Canada. Usually we get representation from Australia and New Zealand as well. This year's meeting is in Layton, Utah. Last year, if you remember, it was in Gering, Scottsbluff, Nebraska. This year, it's Utah's turn to host. That's going to be happening starting July 19th and through the 22nd of July. And you can see the transportation costs there, estimated transportation cost of $7,300, just a little over $7,300. That will come from the brand's budget, and that is paying for. I don't think he put his number on here, but that'll be paying for several staff to attend that meeting. Typically, we always have leadership that attends that meeting, but then we try to get some of the line inspectors there so they can meet colleagues from other states and be a part of the conversations that are happening there. Maybe somewhere I'm trying to see if he put a number on here of how many he's planning to take. But this is a pretty quick one because it's just north of Salt Lake. So as you can see there, I don't even think he put in airfare. I think they're all intending, obviously, to drive down there because that will be cheaper than trying to fly to Salt Lake, even though it's a very quick trip. So that's it, Mr. Chair. That's his request, is for the approval to attend that meeting again this year, as we have for many, 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 many years in the past.
Mr. Chairman, I move we send them to that meeting.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, I have a motion by Alan and a second from Lily. Discussion. Jake, we have a motion to accept this travel request for
No discussion.
All right. Hearing no discussion, all in favor of motion to accept the travel request to ILIA, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, same sign. Motion carried. So I just have a little comment. You know, Jay isn't able to be here at this meeting, and I was just wondering, how did we end up on this date for a meeting? Does anyone recall whose request it was to have this meeting today?
Mr. Chairman, at the time, I was not planning, or hoping, I should say, of having to irrigate 24/7 at the end of the week. Not the norm for us. Usually we're fighting.
Well, and since we've ended up with only just about a 3-hour meeting, it's probably good people didn't.
Yeah, no.
Drive all
Although
ways.
I think Eric intended on continuing his travel, making a circle back to the north, but
that was the intent. Mother Nature had other ideas.
Yeah. So, is there any public on mic that you know?
I have looked. I do not see anybody that doesn't work for the Department of Livestock, or Dalen's still out there that work, unless he wants to make public comment. But from USDA, he's already talked to us, so I think we're good there, and we don't have any public in the room today.
All right. Well, then I'm going to just move on. If we don't have anybody to comment, then he's asking for it. So our next item is to set a date for the next board meeting. And Mike, you would have some input into that, because I think we're getting close to the end of the year. So
I don't think, obviously, if you're wanting to know what the final numbers were on the budget, those won't be available probably until August, because you have the time period after July 1st. Bills are still coming in, and then they have to reconcile all that. So you won't have a clear picture of fiscal year end, exactly how this year ended, until August. June and July are pretty busy months, I will say, for staff, with those that are trying to enjoy the summer. Plus, for whatever reason, every organization wants to put all their meetings in the summer. So we have a lot of people going different places. But, and I don't know, I was hoping Lindsay walked out. I didn't know if we had any of the rules that we had promulgated were out there that were going to be coming back for final approval, that had any time frames that needed to be handled. But from what I see, and based on today, I don't, yes, we'll have the final audit exit at the end of June. I don't see a need from staff for a meeting until July or early August, being honest. But if we were looking into July, the middle of July, at least from my calendar, looks best. So that July 13th week, as we just said, ILIA will be going on. Dr. Szymanski and I will be at the Pacific Northwest Economic Region meeting that last week of July. So if you wanted to meet in July, mid-July is best for us. I don't know how that mixes in with all of your schedules.
Well, that takes us out for haying, haying and try to keep water.
Be a short season.
Here we're listening to a guy that has hay, yeah.
Well, maybe it ain't very tall yet, but
Mike,
well, I
Mike,
know the week of the 19th is a no-go at all.
But if you went to the early, I think we'd be okay. If we had something to come up, I'm out of town the first week of August, but if we moved into August, if we took a couple of months off here, I don't think for the summer, I don't think it's going to hang us up too bad. If anything came up that needed attention, we could always spool up a quick one-item meeting via Zoom to get that handled. Eric, you were about to say something. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Mike, when did you say the fiscal year-end numbers would be ready?
Probably by mid-August. I'll see if Brian runs in here and waves me off, but probably by the middle of August we would be finalized, because bills will still come in for 2 to 3 weeks after, that from June, and those have to get put in and everything has to get reconciled.
I guess I would be in favor of meeting after those numbers are in, so we can spend some time and look in and see how we did over the entire fiscal year, spend a little bit of time on the budget once they're completed, and then gear up for the fall run. Another thought is that the fall run's going to be early unless we get a whole lot of change in weather. So calves will be moving in September, so it'll get busy earlier than it usually does.
So that week of, say, the 17th on my calendar is the week that we're going to be harvesting. But so Brian just stepped in. Do you have a comment? Are we on track?
Mike's got a good take on it.
Okay.
We'll give you a June 29th, preliminary shortly there, in July. But really, if you want to shore up what the end of the year looks like, it's going to be in late August.
And the other thing I haven't said out loud in here, but has been in reports, is that July 17th, that Friday, July 17th, is when we're planning to do the ribbon cutting on the lab for those that can make it to that 11 a.m.
Oh, July 7th.
Yeah. So if we could always spool up a quick meeting if we had a quorum of board coming. I don't think we need to set a board meeting at that time. I think if we go to mid-August, I don't foresee anything. We got your decision on the budget items. We got your decision on the legislative items. Nothing there is going to change. I think we could go to August and be fine. The only thing I don't know about, and Lindsay's not in here right now, is if we had any rules that we're going to complete the process and had to come back for the board to do. But actually, you only need to deal with them if somebody makes comment. And usually on our rules, we don't get any comments, so they can just be adopted without another action. So
I know Gene said the week of the 17th. That is a big Superior sale in Sheridan, Wyoming, and I'm guessing I will probably have to be there.
A whole week?
Well, a good portion of it.
Are we talking about August?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, there is a baby coming August 15th, so you will definitely be down a board member.
Gotcha.
Oh. You can Zoom from the hospital room.
Exactly.
What date is that? Really?
15th.
My date is August 15th, but I am measuring 2 weeks ahead, so I have a feeling I will be having this baby before August 15th.
And once again, if we went to the end of August, I don't foresee any problem for us on that. Maybe we'll have more than a 3-hour agenda if we let a couple of months lapse before we meet again.
Maybe that we will all show up for a change.
Yeah.
Well, I'm tied up that last week, full week of August. I have meetings
Okay.
24th or 25th and 26th.
Uh,
So Tuesday and Wednesday. But other than that, so the 24th, I guess the 24th, I could be here. I'll be in Bozeman the next 2 days, but so I could be here on the 24th, but,
Or the 27th.
or the 27th.
27 will work better than the 24th for me. Really, it is, but Mondays are not a good day.
so is there
So
consensus?
Lily will be ready to roll by the 27th then. Huh?
So you got, do you have-
27th would work good for me, Al.
Yeah.
But whatever you guys decide.
So does that work for Alan, the 27th?
That'll work. The first week of August, last week of July, we're tied up. Promised the wife a trip to the mountains.
Mhm.
You better do that.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
horseback. Should get to riding.
Well, I'm not hearing any negative, Eric, so we'll tentatively set it for the 27th. If there's something that comes up, that would require action, we maybe could just call a quick Zoom meeting and just a 1 or 2 item meeting if we need it. Other than that, we will figure on getting together the 27th of August. That's a long time between meetings, so.
Well,
It's good, so busy time, Joe. It's a good time.
That just tells us that things are running well here.
maybe.
That's what Lindsay said, nothing. You didn't have a report, so that, yeah.
Well, we don't have any, no like litigation,
Yeah.
anything that we have to update on. So I don't foresee anything. I'm not going to would. So.
Well, they're gonna throw the BLM decision out. That's how it's set up. They did the wrong thing on that bison one. They didn't use the citizenship deal. That would have killed it for good.
Yeah.
So
William,
I seen an article, since he's talking about that on KRTV about the BLM brace, the stuff one's appealing. What was that?
So the Secretary of Interior issued a final decision on the use of BLM grazing allotments for bison by American Prairie, and basically said that was not an acceptable use and revoked that permission that had been granted. Since then, American Prairie is going to district court now to challenge that decision by the Secretary of Interior. There'll probably be multiple organizations intervening on it. I think to Mr. Redfield's point, it's about the arguments that the Secretary of Interior used to revoke that. And so that's where it's at. It's like a lot of things. You all know this. You've been dealing with this for many years. Every one of you. There's very rarely clear victories. It's just one process ends and the new process begins. And so now we'll be going to court, and Department of Interior will have to defend that decision that they made, and with the help of everybody willing to intervene on their side.
This will probably go on for 20 years.
yeah.
These things typically have long run times. Yes, they do.
20 years, that's a lot.
Yeah, the only people come out are lawyers.
Yeah, the lawyers will do well. All right, is there anything else that needs to come before this body? I see a no from Eric. Alan, no. Lily? Greg never came back, so.
I'll text him that we're done.
All right. Well, it's, we're gonna have an early lunch today, I guess, so. With that, I'm gonna adjourn this meeting. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, Gene, you're gonna have to work hard to beat this record. You set a standard. You gotta be, the next one's gotta be short. Gotta get